Welcome to Value Plays Only, where pack negation is a problem for future you. Today, we have Cammy, playing Malcolm, Kinnan Navigator, and Vial Smasher the Fierce. This Grixis Pirate deck looks to win fast. It can lean on Thassa's Oracle, Underworld Breach, Glenhorn Buccaneer, or a Trickery Charm Loop. Her hand contains Thassa's Oracle, Vampiric Tutor, Pact Negation, Fierce Guardianship, Dark Ritual, Verdant Catacombs, and Otawara, Soaring City. John is playing Narset, Enlightened Exile. This is a graveyard turbo deck built to take advantage of doubling up on powerful spells before closing the game with Underworld Breach. His hand contains a Ranger Captain of Eos, Mox Amber, Mox Diamond, Lotus Petal, Pact Negation, Exotic Orchard, and an Island. Tyler is playing Rograkh, Son of Rograkh, and Silas Renn, Secret Adept. This is the fastest deck in the format. It uses Rograkh to his highest potential, blazing out Grixis-flavored wins as early as turn 1 or 2. His hand contains a Wheel of Fortune, Infernal Plunge, Demonic Tutor, Badlands, and Polluted Delta. His Lena Mulligans are Time Twister and Wishclaw Talisman. Dan is playing Kinnan, Bond of Prodigy. This deck looks to make infinite mana and filter into Kinnan, putting out huge threats along the way. His hand contains Fyndhorn Elves, Birds of Paradise, Box Amber, Hullbreaker Horror, Void Winnower, Polluted Delta, and Yavimaya Coast. And with that, let's see some value plays. Cammy starts things off with the Verdant Catacombs. She pays a life and cracks it, fetching up an Underground Sea. She passes the turn. John plays an Exotic Orchard as land for turn. He casts a Mox Diamond, discarding an island as it enters. He casts a Lotus Petal. John taps out for a Ranger Captain of Eos. The table pick their jaws up as Ranger Captain enters and triggers, searching up an Esper Sentinel. He then casts a Mox Amber. John decides this is enough and passes the turn. Tyler plays a Polluted Delta as land for turn. He casts his commander, Rograkh, Son of Rograkh. He pays life and cracks Polluted Delta, fetching up a Volcanic Island. He casts Infernal Plunge, sacrificing Rograkh as an additional cost. He adds 3 red mana. Tyler, really regretting turn order, then casts Wheel of Fortune. Cammy responds with a Vampiric Tutor. She searches up a card to the top of her library and loses 2 life. Everyone then discards their hand and draws a fresh 7. Tyler then continues, casting a Mox Diamond, discarding Arid Mesa as it enters. He casts a Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. Tyler then passes the turn. Dan finally gets to take his first turn. He plays a City Brass as land for turn. He takes 1 to cast a Springleaf Drum. Dan then passes the turn. Cammy taps and draws. She plays a Luxury Suite as land for turn. Cammy casts the card she always seems to have when John plays Narset, Dauthi Voidwalker. It resolves and Cammy passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays a Spectator Seating as land for turn. He casts a Soul Ring. Tyler remarks on how good John's new hand seems to be, and John says, I know, and casts Smothering Tithe. Priority passes around, and Cammy casts Force of Will, paying a life and exiling Intuition as an alternate cost. Smothering Tithe is countered and goes to the Dauthi zone. John swings Ranger Captain at Cammy and passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He goes to combat and swings Ragavan at Cammy. She takes the damage and Ragavan triggers to make a Treasure in Exile Brain Freeze off the top of her library. In his second main phase, Tyler plays Misty Rainforest as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up an Underground Sea. He looks at his dismal options in his new hand and passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays a Forest as land for turn. He casts his commander, Kinnan, Bond of Prodigy. Dan then passes the turn. Cammy untaps and draws. She activates Dauthi, sacrificing it to cast Smothering Tithe for free. Much to John's sadness, it resolves. Cammy plays a Training Center as land for turn. She casts a Soul Ring. She then casts her commander, Malcolm, Kinnan Navigator. Cammy passes the turn. John untaps and draws. Tithe triggers and Cammy makes a treasure. He plays a Tarnished Citadel as land for turn. He casts a Mana Vault. John casts his commander, Narset, Enlightened Exile. It resolves and John follows it up with a Mirror Maid. Prowess triggers on both of his creatures. Mirror Maid resolves as a copy of Smothering Tithe. He then goes to combat, swinging Ranger Captain at Tyler. He takes the damage and John passes the turn. In his end step, Tyler casts a Tainted Pact. It resolves and he starts exiling. He doesn't put his whole library in exile, which is a relief to the table. He says he's looking for Thassa's Oracle. He goes, and goes some more, exiling card after card after card until he finally sees Thassa's Oracle, adding it to hand with 7 cards left in his library. The turn then moves to Tyler. Tyler untaps and draws. 2 Tithes trigger, and John and Cammy make treasures. Tyler casts Vexing Bauble. It resolves, and Tyler casts Thassa's Oracle. It resolves and triggers. Tyler holds priority and casts a Demonic Consultation. Priority passes around to John, and he casts Swan Song. Consult is countered, and Tyler makes a 2/2 bird. Tyler then goes to combat, swinging Ragavan at Cammy. She takes the damage, and Ragavan triggers to make a Treasure in Exile Chrome Mox from the top of her library. Tyler then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. 2 Tithes trigger, and John and Cammy make treasures. He casts Basalt Monolith. The table whip their heads around and stare at Dan's board. With no other responses, Tyler opts to crack his bauble to try and draw into an answer. 2 Tithes trigger, and John and Cammy make treasures. Basalt Monolith resolves. Dan taps Basalt for 4 mana and pays 3 to untap it. He used this loop to make infinite colorless mana. Dan casts Trinisphere. John now remembers he has it and sacrifices his Ranger Captain, locking Dan out of casting any more non-creature spells this turn. Trinisphere resolves, and Dan then passes the turn. Cammy untaps and draws. Tithe triggers and she pays. She plays a Water Grave, into play untap, paying 2 life. Cammy looks at her dwindling options and casts her other commander, Vial Smasher the Fierce, as a sign of the lack of good spells in her hand. Cammy goes to combat and swings Malcolm at Dan. He takes the damage and Malcolm triggers to make a treasure. Cammy then passes the turn. John untaps and draws. Tithe triggers and Cammy makes a treasure. Mana Vault deals 1 to him. In his main phase, John casts Gamble for 3 mana. Prowess triggers. He goes searching, looking for some way to close in on the win from this position. He searches up a card to hand and then randomly discards Wheel of Fortune, which is what he tutored for. John goes to combat, threatening to wheel into something to do and give himself and Cammy boatloads of mana. At the start of combat, Dan channels Otawara, Sorting City, targeting Narset to bounce it back to hand. Cammy steps in here and casts Deflecting Swat, changing the target of Otawara to Basalt Monolith. Monolith is bounced to Dan's hand, and then John swings Narset at Dan. Narset triggers to exile Wheel of Fortune, casting a copy. It resolves, and everyone discards their hand and draws 7. Tyler attempts to draw from an empty library and dies. John and Cammy have 19 Smothering Tithe triggers each. In the second main phase, John casts Birgi, God of Storytelling, trying to offset the Trinisphere. He casts Merchant Scroll. Birgi triggers to make a mana. It resolves and he searches up an Intuition to hand. John plays a Sacred Foundry's land for turn, into play untap, paying 2 life. He casts Intuition, targeting Dan. Birgi triggers to make a mana. It resolves and John shows Dan Underworld Breach, Final Fortune, and Savine's Reclamation. Dan and Cammy debate for a while and ultimately decide to give John Savine's to hand. John casts Savine's Reclamation, targeting Underworld Breach. Birgi triggers to make a red mana. It resolves and Breach returns to the battlefield. John casts Jace, the Perfected Mind. Birgi triggers to make a red. Everyone gives this a read and it resolves. John uses the -5 loyalty ability of Jace to mill himself for 15, killing Jace. John escapes Final Fortune from his grave, taking an extra turn. Birgi triggers to make a red. John escapes Grinding Station. Birgi triggers to make a red. John escapes Jace, the Perfected Mind. Birgi triggers to make a red mana. He used the -5 ability of Jace again to mill 15 cards. Feeling good about his setup, John passes to his Final Fortune turn. In his end step, Underworld Breach triggers to sacrifice. John untaps and draws. Tithe triggers and Cammy makes a treasure. Mana Vault triggers to ping him for 1. John goes to combat, swinging Narset at Dan. Narset triggers to exile Underworld Breach, casting a copy of it. Birgi triggers to make a red mana. Prowess triggers to get +1/+1. Dan takes the damage. In his second main phase, John escapes Cyclonic Rift, bouncing Trinisphere to hand. Birgi triggers to make a red. Freed up now, John casts Lion's Eye Diamond. He cracks it for 3 blue and escapes Brain Freeze, with all copies targeting himself. John presents a loop of casting Lion's Eye Diamond and Brain Freeze, milling out his whole library, and then each of his opponent's libraries after that. He then casts Angel's Grace from his graveyard, so that he can't lose the game this turn. John escapes Windfall. Each player tries to draw from an empty library and loses the game. Because of Angel's Grace, John wins the game. Today, we have a 2-for-1 deal. In this game, Tyler's again playing Rograkh, Son of Rograkh, and Silas Renn, Seeker Adept. His hand contains an Imperial Seal, Windfall, Chain of Vapor, Talisman of Dominance, Flare of Duplication, Phyrexian Tower, and City Brass. Dan is again playing Kinnan, Bonner Prodigy. His hand contains Fyndhorn Elves, Mox Opal, Mox Diamond, Armored Scrap Gorger, Basalt Monolith, Metal Misstep, and Mana Confluence. Cammy is again playing Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator, and Vial Smasher the Fierce. Her hand contains an Imperial Seal, Intuition, Mox Diamond, Lotus Petal, Cavernous Souls, Marsh Flats, and Polluted Delta. John is playing Kalamax, the Stormsire. This value teamer list is looking to land Kalamax early and get it tapped. From there, it generates massive advantage by doubling up on spells each player's turn, winning with commander damage or Underworld Breach. His hand contains a Ragavan, Nibble Pilferer, Fire Magic, Farseek, Simian Spirit Guide, Thundering Falls, Misty Rainforest, and Beseiju Who Endures. And with that, let's see some value plays. Tyler starts things off by casting his commander, Rograkh, Son of Rograkh. He plays a City Brass as land for turn. He pays 1 to cast an Imperial Seal. Dan says this is already too much for him and casts Mental Misstep. Tyler begs him to reconsider, but Dan is steadfast in his ways. Tyler responds with a Flare of Duplication, sacrificing Rograkh as an additional cost, copying Mental Misstep. Tyler's Misstep counters Dan's, and Imperial Seal resolves. Tyler searches up a card at the top of his library and loses 2 life. He finally passes the first turn of the game. Dan takes his turn and casts a Mox Diamond, discarding Mana Confluence as it enters. He casts a Mox Opal. He casts a Fyndhorn Elves. Dan then passes the turn. Cammy plays a Polluted Delta as land for turn. She pays life and cracks it, fetching up an Underground Sea. She casts a Mox Diamond, discarding Marsh Flats as it enters. She casts a Lotus Petal. Cammy likes Tyler's start and casts Imperial Seal. It resolves and Cammy searches up a card at the top of her library and loses 2 life. She then passes the turn. John plays a Misty Rainforest as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up a Volcanic Island. John casts a Ragavan, Nibble Pilferer. He then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He plays a Phyrexian Tower as land for turn. He casts a Talisman of Dominance. Tyler passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He exiles Elvish Spirit Guide from his hand to cast his commander, Kinnan, Bonner Prodigy. It resolves and Dan casts Agatha's Soul Cauldron. He follows it up with an Armored Scrap Gorger. He passes the turn with 8 mana showing and no lands. Cammy untaps and draws. She plays a Cavern of Souls, naming Pirate as it enters. She casts a Rhystic Study. It resolves and Kemi passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays a Manamo, School at Water's Edge, as land for turn. He goes to combat and swings Ragavan at Tyler. He takes the damage and Ragavan triggers to make a treasure and exile the One Ring off the top of Tyler's library. John looks at his hand and back at the ring and realizes that's much better than what he had going on. In his second main phase, John exiles Simian Spirit Guide from his hand to cast the One Ring. Rhystic triggers and Kemi draws. The One Ring resolves and John gains protection from everything. He then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. In his draw step, John taps the One Ring to draw a card. Tyler recasts his commander, Rograkh, son of Rograkh. Rhystic triggers and Kemi draws. Tyler then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He casts a Basalt Monolith. Rhystic triggers and he pays. The tables see the win on board with Agatha's Soul Cauldron and leap to action. Tyler casts Chain of Vapor, targeting his One Ring on John's board. John begs for mercy, but Tyler has none to give. Rhystic triggers and Kemi draws. The One Ring bounces to Tyler's hand, and John begrudgingly sacrifices a land to copy Chain, bouncing Kinnan. In response, Dan floats 2 green and 2 blue mana from his dorks. Kinnan then bounces, and Dan doesn't continue the chain. Basalt Monolith then resolves. Dan recasts Kinnan. He can now tap Basalt for 4 mana through Kinnan and pay 3 to untap it. He presents a loop of generating infinite colorless mana. Thanks to Agatha's Soul Cauldron, he can activate Kinnan over and over with his infinite colorless mana, putting all of his creatures into play, including Thrasios, Triton Hero. He activates Thrasios over and over until he draws Finale of Devastation, which he casts with X equals 1,000,000. He goes to combat and attacks everyone for lethal. With that, Dan wins the game. So, what do we learn today? Just because someone misses all their land drops doesn't mean they aren't the threat. Turbo wins can come from anywhere. If you have any tips for the video, leave them below. Subscribe if you feel like it. Until next time, keep making value plays.
Jesus, he's just got it all.
He really does. Here's a smothering time.
Damn! That's awesome.
The power!
That's actually good against Tyler. I'm glad for that.
You do.
Dude, what are you talking
Dan,
about?
I am the problem.
It's good for John.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's good against Tyler? It's good for John who has 55 mana already.
Force.
Yeah!
It goes into the Delphi zone.
Yes! That's
I'll pass.
fucking dope.
How many are left?
7.
Okay, a couple.
3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7.
Wow.
I will crack a treasure, my onlyest treasure for a swan song.
That's good.
Wow.
He's always got it.
I told you to not make me have it.
I told you, every time I jam, it's always John who stops me.
I didn't want to.
Double
I didn't
time.
want to. I told you I would though.
John was in the spot. Feel like I ain't going.
I'm going back to Tony. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
No, I'm playing
Alright.
mono play.
I'm gonna tap for 3, and I'm gonna cast a Basalt Monolith.
That's great.
Great card.
I'll crack Ranger Captain. I'm just not gonna let you do anything else.
You bust.
Yeah, fuck you.
Hmm.
Wheel of Fortune.
Okay.
I live.
Nope. I'll go to combat.
To attack. Wait.
I'll block him forever.
Wait a minute.
On attack it, we'll cast Wheel.
Okay.
So on turn.
And before that.
You gotta do it.
Meow.
Great job.
And then I'm gonna take that one, and I'm gonna Otawara to bounce Narset.
Can we show him the swap? You have to pay for it.
Meow.
The land goes to
Oh,
your
this
grave.
goes good.
Man, do you think that's John's way of calling you dumb? By asking you to be the one who rates his gifts and giving file? He's like, dude, this guy ain't gonna figure it out.
There's
I
19
did,
mana!
I did think that. I'm like, well, did you hear what I said?
No, is your Trinisphere stopping you?
No, I said if I had any object permanent.
Oh.
Could
do you,
be
do you,
more
do you know
specific.
what it could be? Because I don't.
If he, well, I don't want to say.
Yeah, okay, alright. That's fair. What is it
You know
again?
what? I'll say. If you try to kill me with a really big, one big flyer,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I've
You
got
can flash in one guy.
dead to rights.
Yeah.
Let me
I'm
read the card. What the hell?
casting Final Fortune.
Oh.
Or if you care about creature types,
Yeah.
then I've got you.
You're screwed.
You're
if
done
you try to
for.
fuck with her top 4 cards,
it's
over.
We all try and draw. You guys lose and I don't.
Am I able to look at the top 4 cards of my library?
I'll counter it with one of my counters.